Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through a list of some February anticipated releases, and as always I will have the projected release dates in the description bar down below, as well as the books themselves, and I'll have them in order of projected release date. That way if anything catches your eye, you can easily reference back to the information about the book. I know that this is coming out a little bit early into January, but I do plan to consistently have these anticipated releases videos follow this format of being released relatively early in the month prior. That way, for those of you that like to utilize your libraries, you can put in hold requests early enough so that you're not somebody who, by the time you hear about the book, there's already an enormous line for the holds. And then also, if you're somebody who happens to live somewhere where maybe it takes a while for books to get to you, then hopefully by being able to have these on your radar earlier, you can then have the books get to you closer to when they would arrive for other people as well. You can feel like you're part of the conversation. All that said, jumping into it, the first book for today would be Grave Empire by Richard Swan. This author also is the one who wrote The Justice of Kings. This is, I would say, something that a lot of people that are in my corner, you could say, not my corner, but the corner that I participate in, you could say, of booktube, fantasy-leaning booktube. I think a lot of us are at least aware or have picked up this series, but I wouldn't say that it has reached popularity the same way a lot of other fantasy series do, which I do think is unfortunate, as I personally think that that trilogy, which is complete now, will appeal to a lot of people, especially given that there is a genre blending aspect to it. It does lean into fantasy horror, and I think for a lot of people that do branch out and read other genres, that's going to be really appealing, and it's going to make the series stand out a little bit more than another series that maybe follows similar footprints to fantasy would. Regardless, Grave Empire is going to be a new work by this author. The description says, "Blood once turned the wheels of empire. Now it is money," which already has caught my attention because I'm always a fan of when we dissect those sorts of things in stories. But to continue on with the synopsis, a new age of exploration and innovation has dawned, and the Empire of the Wolf stands to take its place as the foremost power in the known world. Glory and riches await. But dark days are coming. A mysterious plague has broken out in the pagan kingdoms to the north, while in the south, the Empire's proxy war in the lands of the Wolfmen is weeks away from total collapse. Worse still is the message brought to the Empress by two heretic monks who claim to have lost contact with the spirits of the afterlife. The monks believe this is the start of an ancient prophecy heralding the end of days, the Great Silence. It falls to Renata Rayner, a low-ranking ambassador to an enigmatic and vicious race of mermen, to seek answers from those who still practice the arcane arts. But with the road south beset by war and the Empire on the brink of supernatural catastrophe, soon there may not be a world left to save. Definitely sounds really interesting. Sounds like a lot of things kind of mixed in, so I'm not really sure exactly what we're going to get with it, but that makes me excited because I feel like I have enough information from the synopsis to have my interest piqued, but not so much that I feel like I have the entire story revealed to me before I even pick it up. After that, we have a story that I instantly was engrossed just by the world. The way it sounds, I think, is so cool, and this might fit really well, maybe, with my steampunk video that I plan to do where I do a deep dive into some steampunk fantasy. But I really think that this story sounds cool. It says Onyxs Life. Oh, I should tell you the name of it, sorry. The Timekeepers. I should also be clear, if you go to look this book up, just make sure that you make Timekeepers one word. If it's two words, a different book will come up. Anyway, Onyxs Life revolves entirely around the Clockwork Lands, a world made up of 5 colossal clock gears that power eternal time. As the assistant to her father, the immortal timekeeper, her days are measured by precise schedules and the rhythmic ticking of her heart gears. However, years filled with predictability take a swift turn when an unexpected arrival offers her the opportunity to explore beyond her sheltered life for the first time. Stepping foot onto the bronze streets of Pendulum City and beyond, Onyx learns of secrets and ideologies she has never heard of, beginning a journey that makes her quest the reality she always thought she knew. I think that sounds incredible. I really, really like the idea of this very intricate world with these gears, and how that seems to truly play a role in how much the entire world functions, potentially. But I guess I'll have to find out. I might have to read and see what I think of it. It says the first book in a series. I believe in the cover it says The Clockwork Chronicles Book 1. So it is going to be the beginning of a series. After that, we have The Forest King's Daughter. I believe this one is fantasy romance. I mean, So it starts by saying, for fans of Sarah J. Maas and Holly Black, I don't know whether to believe that. I feel like they just picked two well-known authors who happen to have become popular in fantasy romance circles. But Sarah J. Maas and Holly Black, to me, aren't that similar. One of them, I think, leans a lot more into the sexiness, you could say, of the Fae, whereas the other one, while yes, they're all beautiful beings, there is this idea of glamour, and they're mischievous, and it's a lot darker in tone. So to compare this story to both of those, it, to me, feels like it's saying two different things. I'll also note that I think I will have to be mindful when things are marketed as fantasy romance to address how much I feel like it falls into fantasy romance versus fantasy, because we are seeing this sort of weird thing develop where sometimes things are marketed as just fantasy and it turns out they're fantasy romance, and then the reverse can happen as well. So this is something that I will try to ensure I let all of you know when I do pick these books up. And I would like to pick this one up because I think it sounds interesting. The synopsis says, once upon a time among the blood-red trees of Thirstwood, a young forest princess became friends with a lonely boy from underground. He gifted her an amber ring, a worthless trinket, or so he thought, because no sooner did he slide it onto her finger than the queen of the underground and the forest king declared war. Years later, Cassia is a crucial force in her father's army, wielding her ring of light that can blind and disorient hundreds of enemies at a time. Then battle-hardened Ziru abducts her, planning to steal the ring back to fix his costly childhood mistake. Exhausted, terrified, and more than a little mistrusting, Cassia is forced to travel with Ziru to a place they both believed only existed in storybooks. One where their childhood friendship slowly rekindles into something much more. But it's only a matter of time before the war they've escaped comes for them, and a hidden threat to forest and underground folk alike grows in the shadows. So that's the synopsis for that one. I do like the idea of a forest setting. I've said before in other anticipated releases that I feel like a forest is an underutilized, or at least from what I've read, an underutilized setting in fantasy. There's just so much that you can do with it. So I hope to really like this one. Also, currently, I mean, it says that it's the Forest King and the Underground, so it's not saying Fae. That's the thing, is I think so many of us just immediately think Fae in these sorts of stories, but this one doesn't say anything about Fae in the synopsis, so it seems like it has the potential to do something different and for its world building to really stand out as unique. We will see. Speaking of Fae, the next one for today would be Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. I can't say too much about this because it is going to be the third book in this series. I have very much enjoyed the first two. If you're an audiobook fan, I liked the audiobook narrator quite a lot. I think it really made some of the dry humor come to life, and also the quirkiness of other characters. I think it captured all of those things really well. If you don't know anything about this series, though, which would be surprising because it's pretty popular, but if you don't, the setup is that you have this young woman named Emily who is somebody who's in academia. She's specifically studying the Fae. It does have somewhat of a historical fantasy feel, and Fae are known to exist, but there are not that many accounts of them, or at least documented accounts. So she is working to create an encyclopedia of fairies, and in the first book, that task takes her to this northern area where a lot of the people who live in this rural area have their own tales of the Fae, and she's kind of trying to research reality from story. And that kind of whisks her into an adventure she wasn't quite expecting, and then the story kicks off from there and the rest of the series. I'm very much looking forward to this third one. I have said a number of times that where the first one left off, I thought we were going to go a certain direction in the second one, and we didn't. And so now I think we're going to go that direction in the third one, and I am very excited about that. I do really enjoy the series. I like the tone. I like the characters. I like the world building. I have a lot of fun with it. For this next one, I apologize because I'm not going to read through the entirety of the synopsis. I will have the book in the description bar, so if you'd like to check out the full synopsis for yourself, you can feel free to do that. But I just like the tagline, and I kind of don't want to know anything else, especially because I do want to dive into dark academia, similar to what I'm doing with other fantasy subgenres, so I don't want to know too much about this one ahead of time. But all it says at the top is dark academia with demons. And like I said, I don't want to see anything else besides that. I know that's not the most helpful for other people, but hopefully it's not too much trouble to look at the synopsis. It does say it's sci-fi and fantasy, teens, and YA. Luna's here, by the way, if you hear her pawing on the ground. Anyway, so it is going to be a YA series. I think dark academia, from what I've experienced, it can be kind of tough to really capture that sense of there being uniqueness to it, because while the setting is, I think, very captivating, can really pull you in, can have this sinister feel to it, I also feel like a lot of them feel as though they follow in similar footsteps to each other, because it's such a contained set of themes and setting that I think it can be difficult for it to stand out. But the demons element is where I'm like, okay, let's find out more. I want to find out more. After that, we have Greenteeth. I'm not going to lie, this one stood out to me because it was compared to T. Kingfisher, who I very much enjoy. If you've never read T. Kingfisher's works, highly recommend. But this says, from an outstanding new voice in cozy fantasy comes Greenteeth, a joyful, warm-hearted tale of fae, folklore, and found family. And then it says, for fans of T. Kingfisher. Beneath the still surface of a lake lurks a monster with needle-sharp teeth, hungry and ready to pounce. Jenny Greenteeth has never spoken to a human before, but when a witch is thrown into her lake, something makes Jenny decide she's worth saving. Temperance doesn't know why her village has suddenly turned against her, only that it has something to do with the malevolent new pastor. Though they have nothing in common, these two must band together on a magical quest to defeat the evil that threatens Jenny's lake and Temperance's family, as well as the very soul of Britain. I like how it went from this contained story to all of a sudden it's all of Britain, but regardless, I think that it does sound like a story that would seem as though maybe T. Kingfisher fans would like it, because it has that sense of wickedness to it, has that feeling of almost a grim fairy tale, but mixed in potentially with cuteness as well. And I think that's a fun combination. The last one for today is more so sci-fi, but I have to say, the synopsis alone made me a little emotional. So I really hope that the way in which the story is executed pulls from its general setup, because it sounds, I think, fantastic. It's called The Last Days of Good People. The synopsis says, on a small corner of a doomed world where the capricious laws of nature can't be reversed, a civilization arrives at the end of its days. Warren is one of a small team charting the demise of the last few inhabitants of Reti 4, a distant planet in the throes of an extinction-level virus. It's not Warren's job to intervene in natural evolution or to question the whims of a cruel universe. He is only to observe and report until Warren actually steps foot on Reti 4. Not the primitive species Warren believed them to be, the Retis are an industrious and ethical lot working together in a close-knit farming village. Lacking the human traits of fear, suspicion, and aggression, they are welcoming, curious, and eager to share their traditions, even in the shadow of a tragedy that they and Warren are powerless to stop. As they embrace Warren into their fold, his compassion grows. So does his own self-discovery. For Warren, far away from Earth, comes a deeper understanding of friendship, civilization, and the true meaning of humanity. And above all, the peace and profound strength it takes to accept the inevitable. I know it's not the most unique, necessarily. That seems to be the word of the day today. I know it's not the most unique. Person goes to this other planet. The people or species on that planet opens their eyes. I know that's not anything new, but the idea of them potentially all dying, and that's something you have to accept in the story, because there's a part of me already that I'm like, no, I don't want them to die. And I haven't even read the book. So I'm really hopeful that, as I said when I was getting into this one, that it really delivers on that, because I think it has the potential to be a very, very moving story and take something that is incredibly familiar and really pull at our heartstrings with it. That's it, though, for some February anticipated releases. As I said at the beginning, I'll have all the projected release dates in the description bar, as well as links to the books in case you'd like to check them out. And if any of the release dates change by the time this goes up, I'll make sure to correct that. Currently, the order that I went in is the order of projected release date in February, but if any of them get pushed back, I'll note that within the description bar. But anyway, let me know if there are any anticipated releases I didn't mention. I think that the sequel to Feybound might be coming out. I've just not checked Feybound out just yet. But for those of you that liked that one, I believe the second entry will be released soon. But again, if there's anything else I mentioned, feel free to let everybody know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.